And hello from Sydney. Welcome back to the Proof of Concept podcast, the tech show where we explore real life use cases from the field and discuss some of the hottest questions out there in the field of data science and AI today. My name is Grant Case, your host here in Sydney. And as always, is my compatriot up there in Singapore. Hello, Alex Hubert.
Hey, Grant, nice to meet you. Compatriot? I mean, I have a very tough French accent, I think, no?
Not as bad as an American accent in Sydney. I promise you that. I promise you that. So, Alex, today we in discussion is going to revolve around this thing called AutoML,
Yeah.
automated machine learning. And as always, let's kick this off. And what is the cool stuff we can do with this technology?
Well, the cool stuff, the pretty obvious cool stuff that you can do with AutoML is just the ability to train that massive amount of model at the same time and then getting the best result possible as quickly as possible, and then transform your business with machine learning and AI. Because now the premise of it is, because I have those models so quickly, then I can deliver them to the business, and then I can do better churn prediction, for instance, so I can do better loan prediction on the website, or any kind of application that requires machine learning and AI. Like anything on your mobile phone, potentially there is an AI system now, and maybe that has been developed with an AutoML solution, for instance, and that's really the kind of cool stuff that you see with it now.
Yeah, if anything, I think it's just the ability to put it in the hands of either someone who has a little bit of understanding of statistics, all the way up to, I know a lot of data scientists who really like this AutoML capability because, yes, while they do hand code, that iteration, that ability to actually, check, is it SVM is good? Am I using random forest? Is XGBoost? What sort of set of hyperparameters might be easier or better as a part of this circumstance? The AutoML tooling out there today ultimately helps us get to at least know, am I in the right ballpark,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
can get to that answer faster.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the and I guess we're gonna expand on that, like the all the stuff around productivity, getting to result faster. Yeah, that's definitely the cool thing that revolves around the 2ML.
Yeah. So, and again, lots of interesting players in this space.
Yep.
We've got vendors out there that are doing it. There's open source projects that are happening with it. I probably there's no more trendy or technology right now, I guess, at least in the data science space that I see, than bringing some sort of AutoML capability
Yeah.
to the party.
Yeah, especially because, and it's exactly this. It's super trendy because the real premise of it, once again, is it kind of democratize machine learning and AI, and it makes it accessible to a lot more individuals and persona within the enterprise. All of a sudden, you don't have to be a super advanced data scientist anymore. You need to know the data from the business. You need to know what your customers really are expecting, or whatever you want to automate internally, and probably make faster decision internally with the use of AI. And you don't have to just code and code and code again. You can just potentially throw a data set to an AutoML solution and get a quick result.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess a good question we always like to ask is, how can I Eli 5 my CEO? How do I Eli 5 uh, this AutoML? How do I explain it to everybody in the organization?
Yeah, so it's a fairly easy complex concept to grasp, really. Last time we talked about Kubernetes or feature store. Those are probably a little bit more difficult to understand. Like, if you have to explain that to someone who doesn't understand anything about AI, machine learning, analytics, an AutoML solution is just the ability to take a huge set of models and train them at scale within the organization with just a couple of clicks. I don't
Mhm.
have to be, once again, an expert PhD data scientist, computer scientist, or whatever. I'm
Not that
just
that
going
doesn't,
to
that not that that's, not a bad
not,
thing.
it's not a bad thing, and actually I'm sure we're going to talk about this as well. Like, it's not because I am someone who doesn't come from data at the first place that I can't run machine learning and AI within the organization. So all of a sudden the value and the promise is huge, because there are a lot of people in the organization that can have access to AI, can potentially be creative with AI, and deliver so much more value, and so much more value faster for the rest of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about AutoML? We'd love to hear your feedback on. So subscribe to us on YouTube and check us out on LinkedIn. Uh, so actually, I think about AutoML as, like you said, it's probably the easiest technology to, make everybody understand. I'm going to build one model, and instead of building one model, I'm going to let the machine build 20 models. Uh, it's not that tough. So, I think that's part of the reason it's been so interesting, and you've seen so much uptake in this technology is it's really easy to understand, and it's really easy to understand what the value is of, okay, I'm going to run a bunch of stuff ahead of it and let it go. Um, but that always brings us to this question of, well, how did we get here? Can we kind of compare and contrast? Because
Yep.
one you know, get some comments going, this whole concept of who should be doing AutoML and who shouldn't be doing AutoML tends to bring up its own level of discussion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately, the debate or the controversy within the industry would be, well, as you said earlier on, if I'm a PhD or an expert data scientist, do I need to use an AutoML solution, or then even more provocative question would be, I study math and statistics and machine learning for so long, so why would I just be using an AutoML solution when I can just simply write the code in scikit? I can build a pipeline in scikit. I can build my hyperparameter search in scikit. Scikit being the gold standard right now for machine learning, in terms of the machine learning libraries. It's the de facto library used by probably 90% of data scientists right now. When they think Python machine learning and they need to develop something, they're going to be developing it into scikit-learn. That's all great, but you now are in a position where, on one hand, you depend on an expert coder, data scientist that understand grid search, hyperparameter search, which algorithm to throw at what type of problem, write the code, maintain the code, maintain the different sessions that comes when you train a machine learning model. Like, what if you've got a new features and stuff like that? So you have to maintain every record and every sessions that you do over time. So that's one choice on one hand, and then on the other hand, well, you probably have someone, once again, that is somewhat of a product manager that understands the needs of the business pretty well, can do some basic feature engineering, cleaning the data, obviously. And as you said, is going to throw that data set at an AutoML solution, who is going to not only test all the different machine learning available right now on the open source community, but also, just tell you which one is the best, and probably diminish a lot the risk of error. Like, did you do the cross validation properly? Are you sure that your data set isn't leaking right now, which is a common problem that you only realize when you get into production? And that machine can really point for you all the errors, the potential problems beforehand. While on the other hand, again, it's an expert who's supposed to know all of these things by himself and catch all these problems by himself. And if he doesn't, well, you know what can happen into production, right?
Exactly. Nothing good. Nothing good. I think for me, when I kind of compare and contrast, there is this concept and idea. Let's take we're going to take the data scientist out of this equation. Uh, if we're using AutoML. In fact, I kind of look at it as it ends up being a force multiplier. And it actually enforces the concepts you were just kind of describing there, Alex, is how do we make sure we're doing it correctly and we're doing it right? So we can debate all we'd like about kind of AutoML and running all of these different algorithms, different patterns, and these hyperparameters. And yes, that is uh, fairly productive. And but I can do that as a data scientist in code. So which one's going to be faster? It's going to be the AutoML. But I
Yeah.
think the one thing as someone who's coming from more of a coding background that gets out of this AutoML, and this really becomes the contrast, is all of these different all of these packages, all of these technologies, including here at Dataiku, we're building kind of that framework to help explain out that code. So
Yeah.
yes, you can find the best model, but are you going to do, like you said, are you going to do the right cross validation? Are you going to do are you going to do the matrix? Are you going to do your PDPs, your partial dependency plots? Are you going to do your fairness calculations?
Explainability. Yeah, explainability, as you say, it's huge now, and potentially an AutoML solution is going to take care of that for you.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, I think that's probably one of, if just behind productivity, that ability to explain it to the layman ends up
Yeah.
being the best value out of it.
Yeah.
So, how do we make money? How do we save money? How do we improve the customer experience with AutoML? I know from my perspective, I've seen a number of different organizations. Customer churn is always an issue for customers, and I always come back, and when I'm talking to my students, this difference between prediction and inference. Prediction being, hey, I'm getting the exact right answer, and I'm closest to the pin, versus inference is I know what, and it can explain why it's happening. So for me, it's almost helping organizations understand the problem even better than they know today. So when I look at kind of AutoML, especially if we put it into those subject matter experts, it's being able to, in effect, test that conventional wisdom that might be pervasive inside of the organization.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might prove it out, but great. If it's not correct, well, we got a problem. Hey, let's fix it.
Yeah. And it's a very valid point, because you always have that tension between the business and the analytics team, as, hey, we've been doing it that way for decades and it works pretty well, and we expect that feature to be very predictive, or that feature to be very predictive. The AutoML solution can help you to challenge the expectation of every different business expert. I don't deny the expertise, but maybe there is another way of looking at the problem, and an AutoML solution is going to give you the ability to see for yourself at a very faster pace that potentially another way is possible. And in comparison to what data science was 3, 4, 5 years ago, when everybody was complaining about black box algorithm, difficult to understand, the AutoML is also going to give you a lot of reassurance as to, hey, here I have a model who is going to be that can be explained that way, that, by the way, is also fair across a large number of population. The AutoML solution can also potentially tell me, be careful, right now I am not fair across a lot of different population. Do you really want to go into production with this? And that's the kind of thing that a data scientist or a data science team, of course, can do, but you will do that at a much less faster pace. And ultimately, if we really try to translate that into dollars, well, like, just basically you can potentially do more, but the reputational cost of having something that
staying out of
wasn't
jail.
like, you don't want to have the press coming after you and say, oh, we have realized that your model doesn't work that well across the population. Obviously, the AutoML is not going to fix the problem of data that you have at the first place, but it can probably pinpoint quicker and better than just the data scientist by himself, where the issue can be. But to me, the real value is once again, it's not uh, AutoML or data scientists. It's I don't know what you think about it. I'm pretty sure that we have the same view, but it's the combination of both. I would love to see much more PhDs and data scientists being comfortable using AutoML solution, because an AutoML solution isn't there to really replace your job.
Right. And again, I think that's absolutely correct. When I think about what an AutoML solution can do, I think a lot of times, one of my former professors, Wayne Winston, he liked to call when we would build an optimization or a simulation model, 80% of it gets done within the first day.
Yeah.
For a lot of this AutoML stuff, it can take care of that first 80% so much more quickly so that a data scientist does have time to focus in. Because guess what? Not every problem needs a data scientist.
Yeah.
Not every problem is valuable enough to take a data scientist's time. So if we're thinking about AutoML, it's almost picking up opportunity cost. The opportunity cost associated with that data scientists to put their time all in one particular model versus thinking about 6 or 7 different problems where they can quickly iterate. And the same goes for, in effect, as you said a little bit earlier, democratization, ensuring that everyone in the organization, hey, I may not be able to put a model in production, but if I can at least look at it and say, okay, that kind of makes sense, I can at least make a better decision versus I'm rolling out a Tableau dashboard or a Power BI dashboard and I just throw 2 things on
Yep.
the screen. It's like, yeah, it looks correlation to me. Let's do it. Right.
Yeah. And yeah, like the ultimately the real benefit of it is you have to put it in the hands of more people that can look at the problem with different angles and just build on the wisdom of the crowd, and at the same time keep in mind the limit of AutoML solution, right? It's not a magical solution that all of a sudden is going to solve anything and everything. If anything, I would also love to see the conversation around AI being, thanks to AutoML solution, more focus on the way we build features, more focus on the way we collect data at the first place, to make sure that the AutoML solution isn't going to have to send all those big red alerts saying, hey, I am not predicting the same thing across the board, guys, you have to fix your data. And I think actually it's the kind of jobs that will start to, data scientist, okay, great, but you're going to have a lot of new titles, like, I don't know,
Right.
data hygienist or anything like that lives around an AutoML solution.
I need a data hygienist to clean my data. Okay, so you kind of got into our last segment here on the POC. And again, if you've got interesting thoughts around this AutoML capabilities, what is your organization doing with AutoML? Follow us on LinkedIn, hit us with the comments here, and subscribe to us here at the POC. So for our last, let's talk a little bit about predictions. What does the future hold for AutoML, Alex?
It's let's be frank, it's the future, right? Like anything that tends towards low code and simplification of technology overall, democratization of technology, making sure that once again we can build on the wisdom of the crowd. Any type of solution that allows that has a bright future ahead of them. That's my view. Like if the question is, are we going to see AutoML solution in 5-10 years? Yeah, and probably even more robust than what we can think right now. Like it's going to be amazing and tremendous what they can do.
I have a little bit of a different take on this. I think AutoML as just a particular solution in general is going to continue to grow. I'm completely with you there. If I see just the value that this brings to a potential organization, absolutely. I think I kind of come dovetail to something you were talking about earlier about, using AI and AutoML to create new features. I think as a solution in of itself, AutoML doesn't have legs, very long. I think it ends up becoming just like just about everything consumed into a larger and larger piece of this entire data science pipeline.
Yeah,
I always like to call back to uh, just this democratization in philosophy, going back in time to the early aughts. You couldn't throw a rock without hitting a webmaster job search. Try to go find that today. It's not happening. You see this kind of divergence, right? You see, people that write content for the website, and you have, web programmers to go
exactly.
program code, but there's no webmaster out there writing HTML and writing content. So
Yeah.
for me, it almost this concept of someone just doing just this or just having this as their particular, it's going to be across every product. To be
Yeah.
fair, why wouldn't you? Especially as the open source world opens up even further to this, because the data scientists are now finding a lot of the value itself. And ultimately, I think it's going to be better for us as just a generally as a population, because those AutoML capabilities, I am actually going to put directly into. I'm going to make sure that I do have all of that feature fairness, right? I'm ensuring I don't have that target leakage. That's just something, it's one of those check boxes. It's easy for a machine to do. It's easy for some programming
And
to do, but I
uh,
can always forget it.
but here is a question for you then, because the step obviously AutoML comes technically speaking when you have a clean data set and everything, right? And the
Hmm.
feature engineering is done. Something that I'm not so sure about is, do you expect to see AutoML solution to go a little bit more on the left side of the spectrum and doing a lot more of auto feature engineering? Because it was a theme 3, 4, 5 years ago. I remember it never really exploded as much as what some people have predicted. But what do you think here?
Uh, I think it ends up being a harder problem, right? What's
Mm.
easier, to write a program or to run a model, or to get the inputs into the model? It's always the inputs. And I think
Yeah.
the generation of features, I would love to have something that would do that for me. But ultimately, you start getting back into that subject matter expertise level. And that's
Yeah.
where us as a data science team are sitting around and, okay, how do we kick around ideas?
Yeah.
And that's where the value starts to bring. So
Always invest in your people. Ultimately, an AutoML solution is going to help you like augment your people, but not really replace them.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that will be our final word for today's podcast. So, Alex, want to thank you up there in Singapore.
Thanks,
This is
friend.
Grant Case. Thanks for listening to us here on the Proof of Concept podcast. Again, stay tuned for new episodes coming up, and always follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope to hear from you. Take care, everyone. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Bye.